Welcome, everyone. This is Cooperative Chat, sponsored by the National Association of Housing Co-ops, and this happens to be episode number 2. I thank you all for joining us. We have episode 1 on the YouTube channel, and this will also be accessible to the YouTube channel. Cooperative Chat, you have a co-host. The first one is Hugh Jeffers, and I'm Greg Carlson. I am the chair of the National Association of Housing Cooperatives. And you?
Well, I sit on the board of the National Association of Housing Cooperatives, and I chair the Development and Preservation Committee. And we're here with Cooperative Chat to increase the exposure of cooperative housing and promote cooperative housing among our members and amongst the population at large.
Thank you, Hugh. We are very, very lucky to have our guest, Judy Sullivan, who's NAHC, the National Association of Housing Cooperatives, Government Relations Specialist. Judy, can you just say a few words about yourself and how your connection to the cooperative industry and how that works?
Well, I've been representing NAHC on federal and congressional issues for many, many years. I am almost hesitant to say how many, but it's probably 30, somewhere in that range. And so I'm also, I think, a point person for issues related to federal and congressional housing, and that makes it interesting for me. I mean, a point person for both cooperators and folks in the DC area, congressional people, and federal officials, and so there are lots of twists and turns to the issues that I cover. I don't think anything is ever a straight line. There's a lot of serendipity too. Things come out of the woodwork sometimes, but we try to keep the ball rolling, and we win some, and then on some we just have to wait. Sometimes things move slowly, and then all of a sudden they pick up and take off. And I guess I don't know if you're ready for me to get into any of the issues, but I'm happy to talk about where we stand on the issues that I represent at NAHC on.
Well, I think they're going to come up during the questions.
Right.
Sure.
If we leave anything out, I'm sure, Judy, you will let us know.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, I should also add too, I mean, I don't always have the answers, but I usually know who to ask. Or I can, search and find out the answers. So, that makes it interesting for me. I'm a curious person. So, and I'm a problem solver. So I like to do both.
Great.
Right.
Great. So yeah, with that said, Judy, I'm curious, NAHC has been trying for years to have HUD fill a position for a cooperative specialist, so to speak, within HUD Central. And I wanted to get sort of a status update on where that is and why you think that would be beneficial to our members.
Well, I definitely think it would be beneficial to members. I mean, so that they would have a point person at HUD who understands cooperative housing and, can also help to promote them within HUD. Unfortunately, at the moment, that's at a standstill. We've been trying to get a meeting at HUD, and so far have been unsuccessful. That doesn't mean we won't keep trying, because we will. And some of these things, like I said, you sometimes have to wait, and then you're surprised that we can end up. I'll keep trying. Let's put it that way. So there's that. But all that said, the District of Columbia has they've been promoting the development of limited equity cooperatives in the district to try to halt some of the gentrification that's taken place there over the years. And to that end, they have appointed a paid staffer for DC government to represent them on cooperative housing. So, you have small successes sometimes. I think DC, it appears right now, is a model of cooperative housing development. And so hopefully we can replicate that other places. Sometimes, when the people in the government see a success one place, it can, they can adopt it. So, so I don't know, I consider that a big success.
So given that, let's take a step back, because HUD and DC are very specific examples. Can you give us sort of a flavor of what the temperature is like on Capitol Hill these days, and just how difficult it is to get things done?
Well, this is the most partisan Congress I've ever encountered. And so, it is difficult to get things done. That said, they just passed the infrastructure bill, and so, there are some successes. The way that legislation, the process is that, a member will introduce a bill, but in order for it to be to pass Congress, it has to be included in some larger measure, what we call, a train leaving the station. And so whenever we see a train leaving the station, we try to add on anything that we think can fit into that larger package of bills. And so, some things get done, and not always, but I'm hopeful. The fact that you have a difficult Congress doesn't mean you don't keep plugging away at your issues. And so, I'm hopeful that we can still get things done.
Judy, the Democrats seem to be polarized between the moderates and the progressive. Would you care to comment on that, and how does this impact what we are trying to accomplish?
Well, they definitely, I mean, the moderates have a go slow approach, and the progressives have a go fast approach. And, on Capitol Hill, you always have to, there are lots of different interests. And so I think that, we can still get things done with those two groups. I don't think that I mean, those are both Democrats. I don't think our problem is with the Democrats at the moment. I mean, for the most part, they seem amenable to working with us. So that said, for us, I don't think it's a problem. For the country, it can be a big problem. And here's an example in terms of the infrastructure bill that was just passed, and then the next bill to be considered, administration bill to be considered, is the Buildback Better. So initially, the progressives wanted to have the two bills combined, because they knew that the infrastructure had the votes. And, you know, they were pretty unsure about the Build Back Better. So, I mean, they duked it out, and they ended up separating the two. So one passed, and now we'll see what happens with the other. So there are, you know, those two groups. They're not totally polar opposites. They just have some you know, different priorities. Even though I think that the moderates, they support the Build Back Better. They're not the problem. So I don't see that as an issue for us.
I have another one, but I'm going to tell a little story before it. It's on September 1st of this year, we had what the weather people called the remnants of Ida, all right? And it hit where I live very hard, all right? I have been in this building for almost 40 years, and I've seen floods. We're prone to little floods, but I saw anything like this. It flooded out a 250 car garage, which devastated. All those cars were totaled. It went into the whole basement, our basement level. It took out all our plant equipment. Everything was gone, including the elevators. And it also, unfortunately, we had a loss of life. So with that backdrop, I am, you know, trying to, you know, along with others, which, you know, this FEMA bill that Congressman Nadler Nadler, I should say, has introduced 5298. Is there any updates, or do we know where we're going with this bill?
Well, Greg, your situation, of course, is terribly unfortunate, and I'm sorry to hear about it. So the Nadler bill, under current law, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration agency, they can help provide grants when disaster strikes. So if an area is included in a you know, as a disaster area determined by the president, FEMA can help out. So for a multifamily home, a single family home, I should say, they cover everything: the roof, the basement, for flooding, hurricanes, whatever. For housing cooperatives and also for condominiums, FEMA will only provide grants for the individual cooperators units, the inside of the unit, but not for any of the common areas. So under current law, FEMA cannot help you with your situation. And the bill that Representative Nadler introduced, HR 5829, it would change that to allow for FEMA to provide grants for the common areas of housing cooperatives and condominiums. Under current law, housing cooperatives can apply for an SBA loan. The difference being that the FEMA grants don't have to be repaid and the SBA loans do. So, you know, obviously, you know, we want this legislation. It currently has 8 co-sponsors. Representative Nadler has been very careful to have it co-sponsored, you know, by 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So this is called a bipartisan bill, and you do not see many of these, believe me. And, you know, we're working with the Community Associations Institute to try to get co-sponsors for this bill. So I would urge every housing cooperative to ask their member of Congress to co-sponsor and support this legislation. You know, you just never know when disaster strikes, as as you've seen in your case. Please, part of my job is to motivate housing cooperators. This is in your best interest. And believe me, members of Congress do pay attention to these emails. I mean, I forget what they say, but something like, 5 emails could represent, 100 residents in a member of Congress's district. And so if you can get 10 people to send one, you're talking about 200, and they do respond to that. The numbers make such a difference. So I urge you and to contact your member of Congress, but also have everybody else in your housing cooperative, have them send an email too. It's really easy to do. I think you can just go to congress.gov and find your member of Congress and just put your zip code in. I'll tell you, I would do it myself, except that you have to live in a member's district. And so I don't have that zip code that you have to put in order to communicate with your member of Congress. But cooperators do, and I urge you to do it. It's in your best interest.
Judy, along those same lines, with the FEMA bill, another area where folks don't receive the full benefits of their position is with the Veterans Administration. I know currently the VA does not allow veterans benefits to be used for housing cooperatives, and I'd like to hear from you where things stand with that, and what we're doing about it at NAHC.
Well, what you're referring to are VA home loan guarantees, and they currently are not available for people to buy a housing cooperative. Very, very unfair. This is where serendipity sometimes comes in, because New York State has appointed a commissioner of Veterans Affairs. His name is James Hedren, and he's a very tenacious and smart proponent of getting these VA benefits. He was hoping to get language into the Defense Production bill, which is although this year that's even in trouble, but it's a bill that always passes Congress, so eventually it will. The VA gave him some pushback. I mean, this guy dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and he got some pushback from the VA. But I think that he's going to, he's tenacious. I think he's going to overcome that. And, we'll likely see this bill pop up again. I don't think he's giving up on it. It's just it might be next year. So, but the fact that he was able to take it as far as he did this year was really huge progress. He's talking to all the right people. He's working with Senator Schumer's office and Representative Carolyn Maloney's office, 2 strong supporters of this legislation. So I think he'll get it done. He knows his stuff, and he's got a lot of veteran connections and with veterans organizations. And like I said, he's a go-getter. I think this was one of those fortunate serendipitous developments on that issue. So we'll get it.
Well, definitely keep our fingers crossed on that for sure. And it's we're thankful to have someone like that working on this. One other sort of issue related to HUD is I know they've had on the books for quite some time rules related to reverse mortgages for cooperatives, and this is a subject that has become very important, especially to a number of New York City cooperatives. Where do things stand on that?
Well, we have had difficulty on the federal level. However, we just received some great news from New York. New York just enacted into law a bill that would allow proprietary reverse mortgages for New York housing cooperators. So that was a big win. Marianne Rothman at the Council of New York Cooperatives and Condominiums was instrumental in helping to get that passed, along with members of the Reverse Mortgage Lending Association. So I mean, you know, that was a win. Boy, we've been working on this issue for a long time, and sometimes it just takes time. We're not giving up. We'll keep after it. I think housing cooperatives are definitely entitled to this benefit. The problem that HUD has with this has to do with, you know, they consider housing cooperatives stocks personal property, and they don't want to insure that. It's the same problem that the VA had with offering the home loan mortgage guarantees. And the fact that James Hedren was able to make great headway with the VA, we're hoping that if we can get it, a bill passed allowing the home loan mortgage guarantees for veterans, overcome this personal property issue, that we can we can have the same success with the reverse mortgages.
Thank you, Judy. The OMLA bill, which was to set up a HUD demonstrative cooperative model. Any updates?
Well, yes. This is a potential feather in our cap, because originally the bill that, in fact, Hugh has been instrumental in, and along with Andy Riker, is from UHAB, sorry. I think the bill that you wanted, Hugh, would be for HUD to do a demonstration project of limited equity cooperatives. And so what ended up happening is that similar language, although not exactly the same, was included in the Buildback Better housing section. This language provides for a $500 million grants to develop affordable housing initiatives, and housing cooperative, limited equity housing cooperatives would qualify for this. So, you know, fingers crossed, if we can get the Build Back Better bill enacted, then, you know, we can apply for that grant. So this is another one of those serendipitous things where it made it into that larger bill, but now then we have to wait for the bigger bill to pass. It's the train that's leaving the station, and you know, I think that the deadline is always pushed back all the time, but I think that they are hopeful that they can get something passed before the end of the year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's jump on that train. Yes, I agree. Thanks.
Well, we're on the train at the moment. We just don't know if it's gonna leave the station.
Okay. You know, a few years ago, they set up a Congressional Cooperative Caucus, and Can you tell us the status of that now? Is it working? Have they been outreaching? Have we outreached to them?
Well, you know, we're working in a coalition, and I should have mentioned earlier too, the coalitions that we're a part of, because, you know, I mean, we're everybody's bigger if they join other groups in support of initiatives. So we're part of a coalition with the National Cooperative Bank and the National Cooperative Business Association, and they're both much more involved in that than we are, but we're part of that coalition, and so, you know, we they help us, we help them. I don't know all the successes that they've had with that. I think that they're just trying to build it. Exactly what it is to try to get members of Congress to agree to support cooperative initiatives. And, you know, they have several members. I'm not sure the count, it might be 10, but they have several members. You know, many of them are from more rural areas of the country. But you know, cooperatives, it's a big umbrella, and there are lots of interests in that umbrella. So we're very supportive of that Congressional Cooperative Coalition. And they've, both NCB and NCBA have been very helpful to us. There's another coalition that I should have mentioned that we're a part of, and it's a multifamily housing coalition, and they have Zoom calls twice a week, and, you know, updating us on all kinds of issues. I mean, they're currently working on some things that aren't of great interest to us at the moment, but one thing that we have an ongoing interest in, it has to do with radon testing. And so this coalition, and there must be like 25 maybe organizations that are part of this coalition: the National Association of Realtors, Multifamily Housing Council. Oh gosh, there's so many I can hardly remember them, but big organizations. National Apartment Association. As I think of them, I'll call them out. But so the radon testing, what they're trying to do is to have, and the radon testing are new regulations that HUD has put out for every multifamily housing building, and you know, radon is a seriously harmful, I don't know if you call it a gas, but and everybody agrees that that some testing should be done, but at the moment HUD doesn't have enough testers, and so they want to have some sort of more organized rollout of this regulation. And so we're part of a coalition that supports that, along with many other organizations. And you know, there's benefit in having many organizations weigh in on an issue. So we've already sent off one letter. You know, I think that coalition, you know, they plan to keep it up. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
Judy, I'd like to just go back to something. We mentioned the Build Back Better legislation and the inclusion of largely what we wanted as far as the cooperative demonstration program. And I'm certainly encouraged that is hopefully going to get passed. But do you see anything that could possibly derail that legislation at all at this point?
anything could derail it. Right now, you know, it's part of reconciliation, and the benefit of including bills in reconciliation. Well, let's see, there's a downside because reconciliation, what you're trying to do is reconcile it with previous budgetary bills. So the first glitch has to do with the Senate parliamentarian, and the Senate parliamentarian has to weigh in to make sure that everything in that bill conforms to reconciliation rules. So that, but I don't think they're going to pay any attention to us on that. The bigger glitch has to do with, I mean, well, reconciliation, you know, you don't need 60 votes to pass it in the Senate. So they just need a majority. And right now, I think almost all the Democrats support it. There's some issue in terms of Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kristen Sinema from Arizona. But I think ultimately they will all support it. But you know, anything can happen when you got such a close majority. You know, they only have 51 votes. So if you lose, you know, you can't lose any. That's the thing in the Senate. So that's a problem. And you know, some Republicans may support it. So you know, if you lost one or two Democrats, you could gain a few Republicans. So we'll see. Most Republicans don't support it. And so you know, it's a process. And this is a big country, and there's a lot of different interests. And you know, members represent the interests of their districts, you know, people in their districts. So so we'll see. I don't know for sure, but my inkling is that it'll pass.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
So we need that for sure. On another sort of specific issue, and I just want to get your feedback on this. The HUD mortgage insurance programs for multifamily housing, which include the 213 program for cooperative housing, they charge a fee, an annual fee that's called the mortgage insurance premium. And regular multifamily housing gets benefit in a reduced mortgage insurance premium if they build to a green standard, a sustainable standard. And with cooperative housing, we're seeing a lot of interest in sustainability. It's consistent with the Rochdale principles through the concern for community. But HUD does not allow the reduced MIP for cooperative housing because of some nuanced feeling that they can't control what co-op members do within their own units. And I was wondering if you have any ideas or have a position on what we can do through government relations to get cooperative housing included in that benefit that all other multifamily housing has the benefit of.
Yeah, we can work on that. I think too, HUD had some grants, some sustainability grants. The funding, I mean, it closed. The application process closed, I think, October 20th. But I mean, something like that is a place where we might be able to go to apply for some grants to help with sustainability projects. You know, that said, I think we can also, I think, you know, Hugh, you and Greg are both on the Government Relations Committee. We should take that up and go after it. Yeah, put it on our list of to-do items. You pick away at things, and then eventually we get them. Sometimes it takes a very long time, but yes, I think it's definitely worth pursuing.
Now we're changing the scope a little. Are you concerned about President Biden's low approval ratings in the polls?
Well, yes, and I don't understand it either. I mean, the guy, first of all, I mean, for his age, I cannot believe how active he is. I mean, I see his schedule every day. It's, they post it in Politico, and I can't believe all he does. I mean, what is he, 78? And he's running all over the place and holding all kinds of meetings and I don't know. I mean, I'm stunned at the schedule that he has. I also think too that, I mean, he needs to take more credit, I guess, for the things that he's done. That infrastructure bill, that's huge. That's going to affect every single state in the country. And I mean, people are going to see roads and bridges and broadband and all kinds of, I mean, there are provisions for electric vehicles, for carbon capture. There's all kinds of things in there that I think will provide jobs. So, I mean, I don't know. How do you get that across to people? The guy's doing a good job. I think he took a big hit in terms of, the way that we left Afghanistan. I mean, that was a debacle. And so maybe some of it has to do with that. I'm not sure, but I have all I can do to say, come on, people, this guy is really working. He's putting good people in place. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very unfortunate. I don't know what to say about that. I'm surprised. I sometimes wonder, I guess, I mean, maybe he's too humble and he's not taking the credit that he should for all these huge accomplishments.
Thank you, Judy. As you mentioned before, how important is grassroots participation in federal legislation?
It's enormous. It's enormous. I say it all the time. Democracy is about participatory government. We should all be paying attention. I mean, I know some things are boring sometimes, but it's like, come on, people. This is your government. It's not just, people up on Capitol Hill. If you don't like them, you can vote them out of office. Grassroots support is enormous. I was just reading an article. I hate to bring up a controversial issue like this, but this article had to do with the protests in front of the Supreme Court on the abortion issue, and that can weigh in as much as anything else. I mean, with Supreme Court justices, and I was kind of stunned because you think that that they don't necessarily have to answer to the people, but that also plays a role. It's like you really have to get out there and be part of this country. We're the United States, not the individual states. United States of America, and I think it's huge. Like I said, one email to a member of Congress is like 100 people sent it. It's not. I don't think they're inundated with things like this. I write my members of Congress, and sometimes I just tell them that I support their vote on something or whatever. But just and sometimes I have an issue with something, and not too often actually, but because I usually think that my members of Congress vote the way I want them to. But it's like, come on, weigh in with these people. They work for you. They're not some they represent you, and how are they supposed to represent you if you don't even let them know what you want? So yes, it's huge. I guess I can't emphasize it enough. It makes a huge, huge difference. Even I guess, some of the protests, if you don't like something, I mean, peaceful protests, and I mean peaceful, that's important too. So I guess I'm so interested in government and politics that I pay attention to it every single day. And I get a lot of information on it. And one other thing that I would add is that information sources are huge. Be careful where you get your information from. You need reliable sources of information, not people telling you how to think, but telling you what the facts are. That's what journalism does. They're supposed to report on things, then you make your decision about what you think about it. I every night I listen to PBS, public broadcasting station. I think that they're pretty fair. They'll have people from both sides weigh in on an issue. I think their reporting is, as far as I can tell, it seems to be pretty straightforward and pretty much sums up the crux of issues. So you know what, that's an hour of your day, but I think they do a pretty good job. I even think, a source like The Economist, which leans, I guess, center right, but I think their reporting is accurate. That's a good source. My personal favorite, and I actually read it the first thing every single morning. I think I have a sip of coffee and then I open up this email, and it's Heather Cox Richardson. And I think that she succinctly sums up exactly what's going on in the country today. And it's only, she doesn't go on and on. She only has like maybe 4 paragraphs, but I don't know how she does it. She's a historian who teaches at Boston University, I think. She's from Maine, but she does a great job. If you don't get your information from any other source, like read her newsletter. It's free. You just sign up for it. But it's Heather Cox Richardson. So, that's a good one.
That's the first thing I read every morning too. So it's
Isn't she good? I
Yeah,
don't know how
she's
she
very
does
good.
it.
I would say most people would say she's left leaning, but she really does succinctly summarize things very, very well. Yeah, that's part of the daily routine for sure.
Do you read her first thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I think she's so good. I get a big kick out of her. She does a great job. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You could probably think of other good information sources, but it's like, I think that's so important. I honestly think the reason our country is so polarized today is because of some of the polarization on the 24/7 news shows. They've got a lot of talking heads spouting their opinions on things. You need to make your own judgments based on the facts. So
one last thing, now that we've sort of covered the news
almost
cycle
everything.
and the spin, all the spin that we get, and this is related to the grassroots approach, but in some ways, there's a lot of activity at the state level, and I'm wondering, for state legislation, is that something NAHC can impact?
Yes, although it's really hard to monitor every single state's issues, mostly because they all do things differently and provide information in different ways. But yes, we can. we've helped, Massachusetts housing cooperatives with their issues. We weighed in on the New York reverse mortgage legislation. Yes, I think we can. I try to be helpful, and I try to find resources within our organization to help people. So I think we can. I mean, it's a big undertaking, 50 states, and although some have more housing cooperatives in their states than others, so you could probably narrow it down to certain states, but still, it's a big undertaking to monitor all that. I should mention too that I usually, I guess now I'm kind of doing it on a monthly basis, but I send out updates on things that I think are happening in the housing cooperative world, most of the United States, but updates through NAHC. So and I just send I send it. It's pretty easy to read, I think, because I just give you the topic and then a link if you want more information. So you can just pretty much scroll down and find what you want. But so I try to send that out to people too. So I think that's a good, and I think that's sent to all NAHC members. Am I correct, Greg?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I try to do that, and I think that's a way. Sometimes too, what I like, and I'll send out information about state initiatives, because I think, you could see something that they did in Michigan and think, hey, that'd be a great idea for, the District of Columbia, or for New York, or for California, or whatever. So, I think that's a way that we connect people in our organization, the people that we represent. I think it's helpful. We
Great.
also have
Do you have anything else, Judy, to wrap this up? Any final thoughts?
I don't know, get involved, stay involved, pay attention. I think that's probably the most important thing. Don't just walk away from these things. And they're not all that difficult, really. There are going to be a lot of things in the Build Back Better that are going to benefit people. I mean, they're not, they're necessarily specific to housing cooperatives, but I think, I thought that provision about support for hearing aids, I mean, that's going to be really helpful for people on Medicare. And then, the child tax credit, and then help for, is it the child care tax credit? I think that's it. And, so there's a lot of things in there that are going to be really beneficial to all kinds of people. And once again, provide jobs and keep our economy going. I recently read The Price of Peace, and it's about John Maynard Keynes. And Keynes said that, if you have a national crisis, the way to, and he was referring to World War I and World War II, but the way to support your economy is to spend big, and that's exactly what Biden's doing with these big initiatives. It is the way to get us. The pandemic was a huge setback for everyone,
Sure
and so
was.
I think it's a great way. These bills are a great way to get us back on our feet again and get the economy rolling and bring us back to normal, whatever that is.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. This has been really informative. I'll add my final two thoughts is reach out to your Congress people. if you want something done, make sure they know. Our membership needs to do that. We have a large membership and we can influence a lot if we try. So I really appreciate you spending so much time with us, and this has been great.
Yes, Judy, I want to thank you for all the time that you spent, and I think I echo what Hugh says. I think if you Google, there are many, many different ways in which you can find out who your congressman is by putting in the zip code, as you suggested, Judy. So thank you very much. And thank you, audience, for tuning in.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.